What is the responsibility and liability of the consignee? If the shipper has given the wrong VGM, the container was caught by carrier as overweight, is consignee responsible for any penalty? So that would somewhat relate to even U.S. imports of overweight shipments. Any thoughts?
I think that's a great question. I'm not, but I'm not positive where that liability is going to be applied to. That doesn't state anything within the guidelines that they put out about who's liable if there is an accident and such, and will the consignee on that bill of lading be liable? So that's a good question, something to be concerned with, especially with imports from other countries. And I did speak with a number of our partners across the globe, and a lot of them said that these containers aren't weighed when they get on before they get on those ships in some cases. For instance, in the United Kingdom, my partner there had stated that the terminals are now going to start weighing the containers, to make sure that the containers are weighed before they're on the ship. But at the current time, a lot of them aren't getting weighed before they get on the ship.
So I think that helps to answer one of the questions there. That yes, this is a worldwide regulation. It's the responsibility of the enforcement agencies. So like the United States, it's the Coast Guard of the United States to enforce this on U.S. flagged ships that are leaving, and it's the same in other countries that their Coast Guard type person, Coast Guard entity, would be the one regulating all the vessels leaving their countries, and that brings, of course, some concerns for us too, because that's their responsibility to regulate that regulation. And what the Coast Guard said out at the TPM specifically was, and he used the phrase, they're working it out in all the other countries. So similar to what we're talking about today in the grayness of the rule, it's a business decision between the carriers and us shippers, us MVOCCs, freight forwarders, etc., to work out how we're going to be providing the information so that a verified gross mass can be provided really from the carrier to their authorities in their country. So yes, this is a global regulation and being enforced by different entities at that. And the IMO who created the rule did not list specifically what the penalty is, especially because the Coast Guard has said they can only enforce gross mass against the carriers. So we're not sure what kind of penalties, other than not loading the container, might be assessed in any regard. So anyways, these are great questions. And again, great questions that many of them we don't have clear answers on. And I hope that's not a negative. I just think it's part of what's coming out in this rule is that they're creating something that maybe wasn't real well thought out in advance.
Yeah, if you're talking about penalty for getting caught prior to the ship the container being loaded on the ship, as far as I understand it, the penalty is you're denied loading and you have to pay whatever terminal fees are associated with the storage of that container while it's dealt with. I haven't heard anything about penalties above and beyond that, but if this is a problem after the guideline goes into effect on July 1st and it continues to be a problem, and it's dubbed a commercial, kind of issue between carrier and customer, I don't think there's anything to prohibit the carriers from assessing a fee for, having an overloaded container or a wrongly weighed, declared container. And then the other issue that, this kind of gets at is how do you manage this at origin if you're an importer? And I think the shippers we've talked to, at least those who have 3PLs and forwarders that work with them at origin, they're going to rely heavily on those entities. I think something like 60% of the people who took our survey of importers said we're going to rely on our forwarders to help us with this. So I think that's sort of a natural thing for a company like that at origin to help a shipper who's honestly very far removed from that physical kind of issue to deal with. So.